All right, everybody, we are live. I'm here with Mahadin today.
Hello, everybody.
And hello, everybody. Hello from Mahadin. Hello, Mahadin, to you as well. How are you
Hello to
doing?
you too, Philo.
Hello, yeah, Mahadin. How are you doing? Good, I
I'm
hope.
great,
And
Philo. Can you hear me? Everything
yes,
okay? Good.
yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
So for the audience, this stream was kind of we had decided about this stream 2 days back, and what we wanted to do was kind of extend our last stream, which was about the logical fallacies, and that stream had a very particular title, and which was that we wanted to pick 10 streams, sorry, 10 logical fallacies from both the sides, looking neutrally from the religious apologists as well as from those who didn't believe in religions, basically atheists, agnostics, or anybody who was non-religious. So this stream basically focuses on some of the leftovers of that stream, maybe a few additions to that list, and things like that, basically, and random thoughts as well. And if somebody has joined the stream, they're more than welcome to come join and talk about whatever topic they want to talk about. So, without further ado, let's jump into whatever we have in our heads. I'll just go through what Madin wanted to talk about, and then I'll hand it over to Madin. And there were a few things that Madin wanted to do, and one of them was um, correlation and causation. And let's start with that, and then we'll move on to the other topics. Madin.
Hi there, Philo. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I thought there was some unfinished business. I think since the last stream, um, and I thought we can take off from where we last stopped. We didn't mention some very um, notable fallacies. I think some of them which are very important and fundamental. So I thought we should cover them in this podcast.
I think, Madin, I can't hear you. Have
Hello, can
you?
you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Right.
Okay, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
What was the last thing you guys heard?
I think you just said podcast, and you wanted to share some thoughts, and then
Yeah.
after that, probably about last 30 seconds we missed.
Okay, so yeah, I thought we can take off from where we were last time, and I think that we missed out some fundamental fallacies that are worth talking about because um, they are they are things which are popularized in most philosophy books, most textbooks, you know. So I think we should really cover them. We can't dismiss them. One of them being causation. Correlation is not causation, and I think that's a very important one because lots of people make this mistake, especially when we are dealing with statistics and data. It's an error in logic, basically error in thinking, um, and we should flesh it out why that's the case. So what that fallacy is, correlation is not equal to causation, as many people may have heard, is that when two things, for example, two variables, two phenomena, correlate together in let's say in some sort of statistical sense, and we think therefore those two things are connected somehow. That the first thing causes the second thing. So if there's A and B, that A is the cause behind B. So in less abstract terms, for example, when you might, for example, you might be reading a newspaper and you might hear, for example, people are living longer every year for every decade in America or the UK, the life has extended by X amount of years. And for every so every decade there's been an increase in life, longer life expectancy, etc. But simultaneously, as life expectancy is increasing, you may also see another statistic saying, while life expectancy is increasing, people are becoming more obese. In other words, people are gaining more weight. So people in the 1960s were thinner and healthier in terms of fat percentage, let's say, than people in the 1990s, or after the millennium, the last 5 years, etc. So there's been an increase in weight, and there's also been an increase in life expectancy. And so someone might think, so is one causing the other? Yeah, these two variables coming together, one might be the cause of the other. Well, correlation, this is where the phrase comes from. Correlation does not equal to causation. Yeah, just because people are living longer doesn't mean that's the cause behind the obesity. Right, the cause behind the obesity might be, for example, as people are living longer and so on. Irrespective of that, people are also getting more stationary because they're able to live a less active life. They live in offices, for example. Well, not live in offices. They work in offices. They spend more time in the house. They don't have to work grueling jobs, and so on. And to some extent, physical exercise is maybe declining to some extent, and it could also be because the availability of very, very uh, rich in salt and sugary foods, and these things becoming very cheaper. So that's the reason behind it, probably the reason behind it, why people are gaining lots of weight, and not the fact that their lifespans are somewhat increasing. In fact, obesity probably has an effect on lifespan the other way around. So that's kind of like an obvious example, and the reason you can obviously see it there is because we know life being longer does not necessarily impact your obesity rate. That's something more to do with food consumption. But this
Right, right,
fallacy, yeah. But as you know, Philo, you might be able to think of many examples from the top of your head where people assume correlation is causation.
right,
Um,
right.
yeah, like for example, you may think. Let's think of something at the top of the head.
Shall I add?
Yeah, go on.
Shall
Yeah,
I
go
add a
on.
few things to? You
Yeah,
already explained it beautifully. So,
yeah.
just wanted to throw in my thoughts as well, and my thoughts might seem redundant because you already explained it very well. So, just wanted to go through these things once again, kind of just to hit home the points in a
Yes.
sense, right?
Hmm.
So, causation kind of refers to the relationship between a certain event, and you can call that event cause, and a second event that is the effect, basically.
Yeah.
And where the effect basically is taken to be a consequence of the cause or the first event, basically. So
Yeah.
these are both events, basically. Me me throwing a dart uh, at the target, and dart sticking to a target. So the cause is me throwing the dart, and the dart sticking to a target is the effect, basically. Now this is in
Yes.
a very loose sense an example to tell the everybody what causation means and what the effect is. Basically, you can have you can find millions and millions and zillions probably of examples daily in your daily life of cause and effect, basically. So there's nothing new about this concept of cause and effect to everybody. Basically, they say it all around them in their real life, basically, or in their daily life. But on the other
Mm,
hand, correlation refers to a relationship between now, correlation is kind of more of a, as you earlier said as well, Martin.
mm,
Correlation relates more, in a sense, in a statistical sense, basically,
mm,
and it's a relationship between two variables, where a change in one variable is associated with a change in the other variable, and it is quite possible that these two variables might be affected by some
Yes.
third variable which is outside these two variables. So
Yeah.
that's the change
And they can
in
be, yeah,
one
just
variable.
to interrupt you, there could be more than one correlate. So there could be four things correlating together,
Yeah, there
four
could be
variables
multiple
correlating.
variables.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
could be
yeah,
multiple variables and
yeah.
multiple correlations going through,
Hmm.
right? I mean, not just one variable affecting the other one, but there could
Mm.
be multiple variables affecting one. Or so you can think of it in a set theoretical sense. Basically, you know what is set theory, right?
Yes,
In
yes, yes.
mathematics, so you have one-to-one mapping, you have one-to-many mapping,
Yeah.
you have many-to-one mapping, and you have many-to-many mapping, basically, within the set theory. And when you talk about correlation, it could be one of all these four, basically.
Hmm.
So that is correlation. And so to just give you an example, and this is kind of slightly esoteric example, um, ice cream and crime, basically, right?
Mm.
And what is ice cream and crime? So it is said that in summertime, the ice cream sales go really high up. But it is also found that during summer times, the crime rate increases to, very high rates, basically. In the summer months, the crime rate increases to uh, much more than what is in the fall or spring. So you can say the ice cream sales are correlated to crimes, right? And this
Yeah.
might be a good, but this is not a causation. Basically, it
No.
doesn't mean that uh, ice cream sales are causing the crime. So if somebody said to you that ice cream sales are causing the crime, they are wrong in giving you the reasoning behind the crimes. So that's one of the examples that came to my mind, right? And take it on, Martin,
Yeah,
from.
yeah, that was amazing. That was a nice and great illustration, Philo. There, I think that there was a fundamental definition needed there that you put on there, which was causation, which I didn't define, and it's good that you. I think I jumped straight into it without defining correlation, causation. But yeah, as you said, causation is more to do with the fact that A actually causes B, and we know that A is a cause, either the only cause or one of the many causes that actually brings about B. So, as you said, the dart hitting the dartboard um, is a form of causation, or let's say domino effect. The series of dominoes, each one causes the effect by hitting and toppling each one over. Those are cause-effect relationships. And what we mean by cause is that because of A, B occurred. If not for A, B would not have occurred. If not for the first domino toppling over, B would not have occurred. Yeah, so we think of a counterfactual, that is the opposite of what's actually happened, and think, would B topple over if A didn't topple over? And we go, no. If had A not toppled over, B, the second domino, would not have toppled over. Therefore, we know there's a causal relationship. A causes B. But as you distinguish from that, things can correlate but not have any causative effect. Let's say the dominoes tip over exactly when in that same room a clock hits 12 o'clock, and then A tips over and hits B. But there's no causal relationship between the clock and the domino. Yeah. Again, we can think of it as a counterfactual. For example, had not the would if the clock did not hit 12 o'clock, would the domino still tipped over? Well, let's say the clock would have run out of battery or something, the domino would still have tipped over. Because there's no relationship, there's no causal relationship between the two things. Just like there's no causal relationship between the dominoes tipping over and me listening to music. We know that,
Exactly, yeah.
yeah, or me having a sandwich. There's no causal relationship between those two things, but they correlate in the sense that they both happen around the same time. And I eat the sandwich, and the dominoes might tip over, and we might therefore think there is a causal link because why would the dominoes tip over as soon as I eat the sandwich? But there might not be either. So we only say that their two things are correlating, but they're not necessarily causing one another or anything like that. We'll just so causation correlation is more like a coincidence, I would say, or can be a coincidence. But just to clarify, correlation can be a coincidence, but sometimes correlates can also be causes. And there are ways to figure that out. And I think at the next point that it would help talking about the scientific method that helps us figure out coincidences. The difference between a coincidence, just a mere correlate, and cause and effect relationship. But if you want to say anything more, you can do, Philo. If you want to.
I am on mute, so let me just get out of mute. Uh, uh, Before we move on to the next point, Mahathir, what I wanted to say was, let us keep the stream a little bit more casual. So instead of going from point to point, let me see if I have other questions regarding some of my conversations with some of the religious figures. Uh, and let me throw a few ideas here and there, and let's discuss those ideas. Are you fine with those?
I'm okay. Yeah, are we live?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, that's fine. It just seemed something just went a bit off on my screen. I thought we weren't live anymore for some reason.
No.
Um,
We're still live, and
okay, that's good.
yeah. So what I wanted to ask you was, and this is a question that came across quite a few times basically in my conversation. So maybe let me throw this question in front of you, and probably
Mm.
we'll do a separate stream on this one of these days. Uh, and the idea is, philosophically speaking, is it an intellectually honest position to be 100% sure about anything? What is your take on this? Let me explain my thoughts on this just briefly, and then I'll give it to you um, to say whatever you want, or what your take is on this idea. So
Okay.
in my thought process, basically, it is almost impossible to be 100% sure about anything, pretty much, philosophically speaking, basically. And maybe you can say, and this is just to give you an example, I mean, to give the audience an example, that I can't be 100% sure that I am talking to someone named Madan, basically, or that I even exist, basically. And of course, this idea is going to take us to a little bit more deeper waters of philosophy, basically. Then uh, we'll have to go through Descartes and his idea about what was that? I exist.
Yeah,
I think,
I
therefore
think
I.
therefore I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, therefore I am, or I exist, something like that, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
you
Yeah.
can take apart that idea of his, basically, once you start to dig deeper into philosophy. But we'll come to that. But in general, what I was saying, that any idea you present to me and say that is real, or how confident you are about that, and I can only say that I can't be 100% confident about that, but I can be pretty confident about it without being 100% certain about it. What do you think about that idea? Or there, or do you think that there are certain things that you can be 100% confident about?
Yeah. So that's a very long-standing question, really, in philosophy, and that has multiple contributions from many different philosophical schools. So it's very hard to unpack everything in there, because without writing like a 5,000 to 10,000 word essay covering many different angles to the answer. So I can only briefly give a rough overview, to be honest, what I think very, very generally
Right.
um, about certainty and knowledge. That's like one of the most biggest topics in epistemology. And how can we have certainty, and what sort of certainty, and what other things can we have certainty over? So what we mean by certainty is 100% confidence that there's a connection between our beliefs and the truth.
Madin,
Yeah,
can I interrupt you for a second?
yeah, you can.
Right. So just because you used the word epistemology, and I wanted to just give a brief idea to the audience who don't know that word.
Yeah, go for it.
So maybe, right. So epistemology is the branch of philosophy that deals with the nature and scope of knowledge, and it deals with questions about um, like what is knowledge, how is knowledge acquired, and what are the sources of knowledge, and what are the limits of knowledge. And yeah, basically, in a nutshell, that's what epistemology means. It deals with knowledge, and uh, basically someone can say that they are empiricist, and somebody can say they are rationalist. These are both the things that deal with knowledge, basically acquiring knowledge, but their methodology is completely different. But that's just a simple overview of what epistemology means. Madin, please carry on. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
define epistemology because I'm not too sure too many in the audience would understand what epistemology means.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if anybody else has got any questions, they can obviously send us a message or come on the chat, and we can discuss any unclear things, any definitions that needs to be explained, and so on. Or even if you dispute something, I encourage any viewers and listeners to let us know. Obviously, you can also look up stuff on Wikipedia or Google just in case you're confused. Any terminology that we use, that's another way of doing it. Um, but yeah, so thanks for that clearing that one up. Yeah, so regarding knowledge, then, can we have 100% certainty? I obviously, like most philosophers in this area, probably side with the answer no. We can't have 100% certainty for most sources of knowledge, and maybe not even certain analytical truths. And I'll talk about analytical truths in a minute. So, with I want to be very, very quick with this, so I can go because there's many different things to talk about here. So, you can have general observational truths, let's
Maybe
call it.
we'll do a separate stream on this someday, right?
Maybe,
Because
yeah,
yeah, because
yeah,
this is such a huge topic. Then, and as you said, you'll have a lot of things to unpack. So
yeah.
it
I'm
only
gonna
makes
just
sense
be
to
yeah, I'm gonna just
yeah,
be try and be very concise here. So you
yeah,
can have
sure, for here for
yeah,
this.
you can have general observational truths, and what I mean by that is through observation. Like planes fly, cars crash, the sun exists and comes up and down. But is that certain? Well, we don't know whether the past will resemble the future. We don't know if tomorrow, for example, the sun will come up. Well, we know this from the past history that it has been coming up. You know, almost every day, almost every day, all every day. Yeah. But would it come up tomorrow? Well, we've had interruptions in our past knowledge before. For example, we thought there was only white sheep, and then it turns out to be there's a black sheep. Or, for example, we have reverse cases of things happening. We once thought gravity was in a more Newtonian sense, we viewed gravity, but then later on it got refined with Einstein's equations and so on. So we've updated our knowledge. So would our knowledge of the sun change tomorrow? Well, the past might not resemble the future, for example, and we can't guarantee it. So even things like that, things that we think we're sure about to 99.999% certainty, there is some non-negligible probability that it might change, and we know this because our observational knowledge has changed. Things that we think are just gospel truth has been falsified. We might think there are people and cases where people think their biological mother is actually their biological mother when it turns out to be that they were adopted. Yeah. So clearly, even very, very fundamental things can change. So we can have very strong probabilities based on our background knowledge, like the apple will always fall when you drop it to the ground. But we have to take into account that there's no certainty. Because when we say there's 100% certainty, that means it's almost like we've got God-given knowledge, omniscience, that we know that nothing can change.
Yeah, that's one
Yeah.
of the fundamental objections I have to people who say no, I can be 100% sure about something, and this comes really from those of the religious background. Basically, most of the people or the religious apologists that I have spoken to, they claim to be certain 100% certain about their beliefs, basically. And
Yeah.
that seems to be almost godlike to me. I mean, this position, holding somebody holding this kind of a position, is almost 100% like godlike position, basically. And what their claim is that they know almost as well as a god would, if someone of that nature existed, basically.
Yeah, that's. I think one of the things is a lot of people think that the problems in epistemology about certainty can be resolved through a theistic framework where you believe in a god, and God therefore guarantees certitude. And I think that is getting it the wrong way around, because uh, even the knowledge of a god is built through our foundations of knowledge, our knowledge mediated through our thought systems, our epistemologies. So to get to a belief in God requires us to believe in certain scriptures, and that requires our senses, and that's also observational. Yeah. So if what I said here is that observational truths, like um, and we in philosophy, observational truths it's more like inductive reasoning, and we talked about inductive reasoning before. It's just using past experiences and knowledge about observations that we've seen, and we extrapolate it to make inferences of the future. So if every sheep has been white, we think it's very likely for the next sheep to be white rather than black, because there's only a few black sheep, or something like that. Um, yeah. So that inductive observational sort of knowledge also is used to build knowledge about God. We might observe, for example, fine tuning or design. We might observe miracles. We might observe the scripture, right? And then once we observe those things, the scripture says something like, you have now certain knowledge. This cannot be false. This is 100% true. But wait a minute. This entire thought about the scripture, this theistic framework, religious framework, is built on top of observational knowledge, mediated by
Yeah,
our
that's
brains.
that's a
Yeah.
once you realize that your inductive reasoning is
Yes.
inherently flawed,
Yes.
and then you have to realize that if any kind of belief system that you built on top of that reasoning,
Exactly.
it's gonna be flawed as well. It's not gonna be 100% certain. That's very fundamental, and you explained it very well. So
Yeah.
I mean, people need to understand that even though that they think that since they have seen sun has been rising every day of their lives, let's say
Yeah.
for 20,000 days of their lives that they have seen sun rise,
Yes.
it's going to rise tomorrow as well. I mean,
Mhm.
this reasoning is fundamentally flawed, because
Mhm.
this based on inductive reasoning. I mean, only certitude that you can have is with deductive reasoning, and that can only happen with abstract objects and with mathematics or logic.
Yeah.
and
I think that's correct. I think that
and
sounds correct.
then the only issue here is whatever whenever you try to use deductive reasoning with real life, your premises more often than not are going to come from your inductive
Induction.
reasoning. Yes,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so you're going to fall flat when you're trying to establish its certitude. And that's the very flaw of this whole argument that you can
Philo,
discuss in
I would ask
certain.
you to, yeah, Philo, I would ask you to just exemplify that for our viewers, because what do you mean that the first premise would always come from almost always come from an inductive one? Can you just explain it, and explain why even a deductive reasoning, why there's no certainty?
Right. I mean, I'll take a very simple example that I think we have used in our last stream, or
Yes.
probably a stream prior to that. I don't know. I'm not quite sure if we have used it, but we have used
Yep.
Kalam cosmological argument in probably in one of our
Yeah.
streams. And the problem with
Yeah.
Kalam cosmological argument is that it sounds pretty nicely structured argument when you see that, okay, I have two premises and I have one conclusion, and the first premise is something like everything that begins to exist has a cause. Second premise is the universe began to exist, and therefore universe has a cause. I mean, this very fundamental argument has been used for centuries by Muslim apologists as well as Christian apologists, and it is supposedly very rock solid argument. The problem comes with the premises, basically. Now look at both the premises. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Now this is an inductive argument. If you see, fundamentally, this premise is an inductive reasoning, because you see that everything that begins to exist has a cause. You induce or you infer that everything has a cause. Now, you haven't ever seen anything that begins to exist without a cause. And even more troublesome for religious apologists here is when they say, okay, forget about everything, and let's assume you say that you have a supernatural being who exists. Now, that supernatural being exists forever. That supernatural being never started to exist. So now you have a flaw in your reasoning where you see that everything that begins to exist has a cause. Madin, you dropped out, I think. Can you hear me? So there is something that never began to exist, right? And you don't know whether that something has a cause or not, basically. Martin, you dropped out. You want to join in? In between, I have philanthropist who's Martin. You seem to have dropped out.
Yeah, I'm back now.
Yes, and we have philanthropist.
If he wants to
Uh,
come on, you can more than be welcome to.
yes, philanthropist. If you want to join, please come on board. And okay, so that's the flaw that I was pointing at in the Kalam cosmological argument, that your premises, you seem to take it as if this argument is deductively very strong, but the fundamental premises within this deductive argument are based on inductive reasoning and inductive observation, basically. And even the
Yes.
second premise in here is that the universe began to exist. And there are different scientific models that some say that there was a beginning, some say there was no beginning, and this universe is eternal and past, pretty much. So there you go. That's one
Yeah.
example, kind of off the top of my head.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. I've never really really was convinced by the deduction and induction distinction in terms of certainty. Is it a deductive argument is only certain if the first two premises are true. I think that's how it should be stated. You know, but that begs kind of the question whether the first two premises are true, right? Um, so it's only certain in a very academic sense. Um, if the first two premises, if all men are mortal, Mahadin is a man, are true, then obviously by definition Mahadin is mortal. But of course, the first premise, all men are mortal, is an inductive generalization. The second premise, Mahadin is a man, is also an inductive generalization. As we know, there could be just like we've learned about sheep, and just like it's possible that the sun might not come up tomorrow. We might learn that there is a man who is capable of immortality. Could that happen? Maybe science can make a breakthrough, or something else. You know, I mean, to some extent, there's a lot of supernatural creatures and so on in history of humanity that have claimed, well, not supernatural per se, but superstitions, I should say, superstitions about certain human beings who were special or gifted, let's say, but they were still human beings. What if that turned out to be true? What if there's one historical fact that science has undermined, and we learn tomorrow that it was actually true, that there was a man who was who had certain gifts and powers, etc. He was immortal in some sense, although he could, let's say, he could be killed. But had he not died of a natural cause, let's say somebody murdering him, he would have lived forever. And if that's the case, then that would be an exception to the rule. So it's not true that all men are mortal. So just like induction is uncertain because there could be an exception, and if we're going to be very 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 fantastical about this and think that even the law, gravity can one day be suspended, or the sun may not come up, it could also be true that men might not be mortal. And
Exactly, exactly.
if that's the
Yeah.
case, so what are we doing there when we're looking at a deductive argument? We're just suppressing the fact that there are inductive arguments involved in there and hiding it, and just assuming they're true. Well, if they're true, yes. If we know for sure all men are mortal, if we know for sure Madin is a man, then it must follow. Must. There's there can't be any uncertainty. But that begs the question: are we dead sure? Are we cocksure that all men are mortal? And that's where the weaknesses of induction comes back into the game. Yeah.
Right, right. I mean, this is one of those things that you uh, in the real world, in the real physical world, it's almost impossible to get rid of inductive arguments. And as long as you'll have inductive arguments, your case for certitude is gonna always get a hit. Basically, I mean, it's gonna always take a hit. Basically.
Yes.
All right. Shall we move on to the next thing that you wanted to talk about? Maybe try to you know uh, shorten the stream and finish it maybe within 15 minutes, and we'll do another longer stream maybe
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
few days.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Just quickly commenting on certainty and knowledge, and very quickly, like you mentioned, there might be some certainty in mathematical equations and mathematical arithmetic and so on. 2 + 2 = 4. That seems to be certain. There's no exception to the
Right.
rule.
Right.
Yeah, so that's not like inductive knowledge or observational knowledge about the world. It's more like analytical truth, or truth that exists in a very abstract sort of mental sense. Yeah, and based on the definitions, you can say that's also deductive. Based on the definitions, it has to be true, right? And maybe that's the closest thing that we do get to certainty, because unlike other things that we can imagine to be false, for example, sun might not come up tomorrow. 2 + 2 = 4. We can't even imagine that to be false. Yeah, so there's some certainty there. But here's the issue. Here's where I'm going to be a bit radical. Well, it's not just me. He's radical. I'm inspired by other philosophers to be radical here. But and Descartes kind of thought this as well. Maybe even the truth of 2 + 2 is created by some sort of demon. Now his version is kind of laughable. That's what he made the argument. Like 2 + 2 could just be like a figment of my imagination, just something our brains generate. As such, maybe there's no
Uh,
certainty regarding
there's
that either.
sorry, interrupting you, Mahadan.
Yeah,
And I think he has probably a reason to say so. I mean, maybe it
yeah,
seems radical, his point of view, but if you think over for a second, it might just seem right,
yeah,
probably.
yeah. I mean, there are many reasons why, because all these seemingly strong analytical truths have been, some of them, some at least, have been falsified. For example, um, uh, we thought parallel lines won't meet by definition. This was not because of any, not necessarily because of any observations that we made, but it's something to do with the definitions itself. Like parallel lines are by definition something that they will not meet because of the way they're structured. They're parallel to each other, and if they are kept even, they will never meet. Yet parallel lines do meet. I think around black holes, parallel lines can meet. Um, right? So there's like one version of seemingly analytically strong truth that has been falsified
Right.
through an
I
observation.
think that probably what you're saying. I'm not quite sure if I'm gonna make any sense, but what you're saying about parallel lines meeting at a black hole might be a consequence of what do you call the curvature of the
Yes. Yeah.
produced by the
Yeah.
black hole.
Yeah.
And then, in that sense, probably we have already distorted the definition of parallel lines. But
Parallel
there is
line. Yeah.
another
Exactly.
argument
Yeah.
given.
I was gonna. Yeah. I was gonna back that up again. But I wanted to just throw it in there because a lot of people do
Right,
make that as an example of
right, right.
analytical truths being falsified. Yeah.
Right, but there
Um.
is just wanted to touch upon this argument of parallel
mm,
lines meeting, right? And
yeah.
when you said this, I thought probably what you're gonna say is that they meet at infinity, and this has
Yeah.
always been an argument basically, and this has been speculated that they might meet at infinity because we don't know
Exactly.
what happened, and this has to do with the definition of infinity and not the very nature of the lines, the parallel lines, basically.
Mm,
So
mm,
it's still an unsolved problem whether the parallel lines meet at the infinity or not. So it's kind of
yeah.
a yeah, it's
But
there
you
out
can.
there in the limbo basically.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but it's a candidate, I would say, then that may show that just sitting around thinking about definitions is not enough. And then you have four-dimensional structures. Tesseracts. That's. It seems as though
Right.
analytically we can't even imagine a four-dimensional structure. Um, what does that show then? I mean, but mathematically you can demonstrate. I wouldn't know how to. I'm not a mathematician, but mathematically, I hear that there's quite a bit of consensus on the idea that four-dimensional structures can exist. Yet, yet it seems as though it should be impossible to some extent. What that shows, and along with the potential of a parallel line meeting, is that stuff like 2 + 2 = 4 or square triangles can't exist. We think that that makes sense for us, but we have um, potential falsifications of our previous analytical truths that we thought were analytical and certain, but turned out to be untrue. Or potentially untrue in the case of parallel lines, which means there could be other analytical, seemingly true and certain analytical truths that might be falsified in the future as well. Yeah. The other thing is, it might actually not be an analytical truth. And I know this sounds a bit weird, but for example, our ability to think about these things is also subject to induction. Our classification of this is an analytical truth and that's not an analytical truth is subjected to induction, because the past might not resemble the future. It could very well be that in the future, what we thought was an analytical truth, where the definitions are certain, it has to follow, etc., um, wasn't such anyway. Um, there was a mistake in the math, there was a mistake in the idea, etc. And we know this because we're fallible and we're not infallible. And as long as you can acknowledge that we're not infallible, there is still a non-negligible probability that we might be wrong about even those very, very certain a priori analytical truths. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say for that.
Right, right. I think I agree to what you just said
Mm,
completely and wholeheartedly.
mm,
So, yeah, I mean, I think we are on the same page regarding the certitude or being certain about being 100% certain about anything or everything. Pretty much, I think we are, but we'll probably do another stream taking up these topics, maybe a little bit more in detail. I think we just brushed upon these topics right now for the time being,
mhm,
and
mhm.
probably will bring more and more philosophers and what they have to say, and what their take is on the subject, because most of the topics that we are covering or we have covered so far or we are gonna be covering are gonna be really tough, and maybe most of the times there won't be a consensus on
Yeah.
those subjects most of the time. But anyways, here's another topic that you wanted to talk about, and so I'm just gonna throw it out there for you to take it up. I'll probably just go through a little bit,
Yeah.
introduction of it, and then you take
Go
over
ahead.
from there. As
Yeah.
the law of really large numbers you mentioned you wanted to talk about, and what it is basically it's a statistical principle that says that the number of trials in a probability uh, And this is something that I think we have observed it. Maybe we haven't really thought about it. And I'll probably before going on to explaining what it is, I'll just give an example of a coin toss, right? And how do we know that the probability of a head uh, being, when you toss a coin, getting a head has the same probability as getting a tail, basically. And
Hmm.
both of them have a probability of half and half, right? It's a 50% probability.
Yep.
So how do you know that? And basically, somebody would say, "Hey, I tried that experiment, and what I did was I tossed the coin probably 5 times, but I got four heads and only one tail. So this is clearly not true that they have equal probability." So that's where the law of the large numbers comes in handy, basically. So it states that certain experiment, if you perform for a large number of times, your statistical probabilities are going to be falling in the
Yeah.
numbers
Yeah.
which are representative of their true
Hmm.
probabilities.
Hmm.
So in this case, if you perform a million times toss of a coin, you'll realize that Martin, your there's noise from your end.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you, but there
Okay.
was noise, a little bit of noise, right?
Okay.
So, so when you do coin toss a million times, you'll realize that you have probably probability of head coming down 500,000 times, plus minus probably 1,000. And same is true with the tails. You have 500,000 times tails, plus minus a few hundred, few thousand times, right? So this
Yeah.
means
Yeah.
that you have reached that half and half probability. Anyway, take it ahead. Take it away, Martin.
No, I think you gave a pretty good explanation and so on. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about this, especially like what's the relevance of the law of really large numbers to anything. Well, I want to talk about it especially is because sometimes we have a bit of difficulty of gauging how likely some things are, and we think if we hear, for example, lots of anecdotes on newspapers and TV of events occurring, that they're more commonplace than they actually are. And there's a reason for that. There's something called probability bias and catastrophizing and so on. If we see something on TV like a dangerous event, um, let's say there's a rare disease or something that has occurred, and it gets presented on TV, we may think, for example, it's more commonplace than it actually is. There's a cognitive bias of our brains that makes us more susceptible to thinking it's more likely in the world than it isn't. So we're more likely to think, for example, or feel, at least it's more of a feeling that when we're on the plane, that the plane is likely to crash, even though planes are more safer than other forms of transport, primarily because statistically planes barely ever crash. But when we hear, for example, on the news a plane has crashed, that instantly creates the impression that it's more probable than it isn't. And there's a cognitive bias about that. It's called negativity bias. Negative events we um, tend to think is more likely than positive events. In other words, we're more pessimistic, and we basically, and we think
They're
things
they're
that are
they're more likely to be promoted in a sense, kind of, or brought up in the yeah, in a popular kind of sense. They're going to be more popularized, basically, in a sense.
well, that's true as well. That's true as well. I mean, the news would broadcast negative stuff, right? Mainly because all the good stuff doesn't get presented anyway. The news won't, for example, broadcast that it's been a very crime-free day in Los Angeles. You know, yeah, the news is designed to report bad news. Mainly. I mean, obviously, it's not inherently the case,
Yeah,
but the news. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
exactly what I wanted to say. That it it seems so that these events are happening more often than they are in
Yeah.
actuality, basically.
Yeah, that's the media obviously contributes to it. But what I'm trying to say when I say negativity bias is that our actual brains, yeah, can look at two. So they've done experiments on this when you can, for example, see a positive experience, something that human beings define as positive, and they'll watch the experience or watch the news or watch the movie, and when you ask how likely these things are likely to happen in life, they would underestimate it or something like that, or at least not overestimate it. At least on the other
All right,
hand,
I see your
yeah,
point. I see your
yeah,
point.
and when they see a negative event, they tend to overestimate the probability of it occurring. Yeah, especially if it's happened to them. So especially if they've been subjected to a rare shark attack, for example. Yeah, they would overestimate the probability of sharks attacking you. And furthermore, if they see it on TV, even they would. If you ask them, then after seeing like a shark program, how likely do you think it is to get bitten by a shark? They probably overestimate it. Then compared to a positive thing, let's say the winning of an Oscar, or something basically positive, or contrasted to a shark attack, basically whatever that is. They would not, or at least overestimate the probability of occurring. For some reason, then our brains are hardwired. It seems, maybe for evolutionary biological reasons, we don't know the cause exactly. Um, uh, Hardwired to overestimate negative stuff, the probability of negative stuff happening. So there is a cognitive bias about that. And the reason I want to talk about law of large numbers is because I want to just say that we're not very good mathematicians, or we're not very good at probability intuitively. We somewhat think certain events are more likely to happen than it actually is, when it's actually very rare. And also sometimes underestimate how
Or the
something can
opposite
happen.
side as well,
Yeah,
right? Opposite side of
underestimate.
the spectrum as well, right?
Exactly. And this is because there is a phenomenon called the law of large numbers, which is like almost like a rule, I would say. It's like a heuristic, a very useful heuristic. A heuristic meaning like a tool, like just like the law of gravity, or the or like the any sort of law in physics, you want to call it, is trying to mirror that. It's trying to replicate that sort of convention. A law of the law of really large numbers is when there are multiple trials and multiple opportunities, and because of the multiple trials and multiple opportunities, increases the probability of a particular phenomenon or event to occur. And in a more clear terms, if you try something over and over and over again, you increase the chance of that thing happening. So if you flip a coin over and over and over again, you increase the chance of 10 heads in a row. What is the chances of 10 heads in a row? It's quite low. It's like something like 1 in 1,000, right? But if you stand there flipping a coin 1,000 times, yeah, if it's 1 in 1,000
Or
chance of getting
yeah,
10 heads
one
in a
million
row,
times, something like that, right?
or something like that, yeah, 1 in 1 million, yeah. But if you do it at 1,000 times, then you at least have a chance of getting it once. Yeah, if you do it 10,000 times, then maybe 10 times in a row. And the point
Right,
is
true
that
that.
the more opportunities you have, the bigger the denominator. If you do it like in 10 million times or 20 million times, the more successful tens in a rows you will get from the coin flips.
Yeah, in a nutshell, the more times you perform a certain what you call trial, and
Mm.
the more probability you have for for a for event that is unlikely to happen. So the
Yes.
probability of that event occurring keeps on increasing.
Yes. And this is exactly the reason why we hear about lottery victories, people who win lotteries. The people who win lotteries, it's very rare. It's something like 1 in 6 million, maybe more. I don't know. I don't know what the number is. But in the history of humanity, the number of people who have played the lottery exceeds 6 million, right? So clearly there's going to be many, many victors because of the law of really large numbers, because of the multiple opportunities around the world. If millions and millions and millions and millions of people are playing the lottery, definitely increases the chances that there will be some people who win because of probability, basic math, just like the coin tosses. And in fact, in regards to the coin toss, they've actually performed that experiment and showed that it's true empirically. I mean, you don't need to show it empirically, but even empirically, it's shown to be true. They've actually had people go into a massive sports field, like a football field or a soccer field, and they had 1,000 people or whatever it is, whatever the number, flip a coin, right? Um,
Right.
you can also get these videos on YouTube. There was a person who flipped a coin 1,000 times to find out how many tens in a row he gets, and even though
How
on
many heads
average,
he gets in a row? Yeah, how many
yeah,
heads?
sorry,
Yeah.
how many heads he gets in a row, um,
Right.
and in fact, although on average it takes, you know, for every 1,000 flips, in every 1,000 flips you might get one set of heads in a row, up to 10, that is 10 heads in a row. He got like two or three before he even got to 1,000, showing that it's actually more likely than we think it is. um,
Yeah, highly improbable events become
More
quite
probable, yes.
probable when you increase the number of trials you perform on a
Exactly.
certain event, basically.
Exactly. And that is a very useful trick of the mind that we need to, well, not trick of the mind, a tool of the mind that helps us tackle some of the tricks of the mind, such as that cognitive bias that we have, that negativity bias, where we think, for example, certain events are actually more common than we think it is. Why is it? Why does when we turn on the TV, we hear bad news? For example, is because the TV is obviously geared towards presenting negative news, and now we know our cognitive bias anyway catastrophizes things and makes things more dangerous things, or what we perceive as negative, to be more likely than not, when in reality it's actually very rare. And the one we hear about it, when we might hear, for example, 10,000 people have died from, or 1,000 people have died in America from lightning strikes, right? But in a year, or something like that. But then we find out that the reason we get that 1,000 number is because of the multiple opportunities. A lightning strike might be something like 1 in 20,000, or 1 in 30,000, or 1 in 60,000. Yeah. And if you have more than that many opportunities for a lightning strike, so if you have 120,000 opportunities for a lightning strike, you should at least expect two people to get struck by lightning, right? So when you have millions of people in America, well, I don't know what the population size is in America, is it like 300 million, 350 million, or something like that, every single day being exposed to potential lightning strikes, then you've increased the pool of people being struck by lightning. But you've got to take into account when it says something like 1 in 60,000 people are likely to be struck by lightning, or 1 in 100,000. I don't know the definite number, but let's just go with 1 in 60,000 or something. People will be struck by lightning. It also means 59,000 people won't be. So there's going to be more
Exactly,
losses.
exactly.
Yeah, there's
Right,
going to be more losses, which means it's very unlikely. So if we
right,
only go off with the hard number, which is that 10,000 people have been struck by lightning, it does not tell us the ratio of people who were not struck by lightning compared to the people who were struck by lightning. The ratio of people not struck by lightning is much, 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 much higher, yeah, than the people who are struck by lightning. But because there's
right.
so many opportunities, we hear these things.
Madan,
Yeah,
I'm gonna steal man your example and probably try to shift it towards more of uh, a similar argument that's given by religious apologists, right?
go
And
for it. Yeah,
this law of large numbers is often used by support claims about the validity of religious experiences of miracles. Basically, you see what
yeah,
the connection I'm trying to make with your argument
yes,
with the religious argument here, right?
mm,
And they argue that something some miracle has happened because somebody was healed. Basically, supposedly
mm,
there was a prayer read by some particular a religious person believing in a particular belief, basically, right?
yeah,
And for him, if he sees that certain person that he prayed and somebody cured in his family, or somebody else he prayed for cured, right?
mm,
Now that person supposedly healed. Now this person would realize that healing has been due to his prayer, but he didn't realize that this number is basically huge number, because huge number of people pray, and
yeah,
then you don't get the negative instances when that healing didn't happen, right?
yes, exactly.
Right. So this is exactly the same thing, the same law of large numbers that people apply to their own favors, basically. In this case, religious apologists, basically.
Yeah,
Just wanted
yeah,
to
and
throw in this example here because
yeah,
most of
and
the times we talk about religions and why we think that most of these religious apologists use fallacious arguments. So I just wanted to throw in this argument as well, basically, and at least not throw in this argument, but throw in this example relating to this law of large numbers.
yeah, that's great. That also demonstrates the correlation fallacy. The correlation is not causation. Whereas you may think that the prayer or ritual act that was performed caused the miraculous healing. That's just two things, two variables: the prayer or the ritual correlating with the healing. We don't know that what the cause is. Correlation does not necessarily equal causation. Like you said, because of the law of large numbers, we're only counting the one instance of a prayer correlating, coinciding with the healing, when it might have nothing to do with that. This is, as you've illustrated, because you have multiple opportunities, multiple people praying. Every time somebody's praying, most people are not getting healed. Yeah, so person one prays, doesn't get for person one prays for A, doesn't get healed. Person two prays for B, doesn't get healed. Person three prays for C, doesn't get healed. But you keep doing that, yeah, until you have so many opportunities and events that once upon a time it will just overlap with each other, where person X number
Exactly.
person, he it will, that prayer or spiritual act will overlap with that person's recovery, and you go, oh, look, it worked here. But no, that's because you have multiple opportunities, and just because those two things coincided and correlated with each other does not mean one thing caused the other. And this is also common sense in the following, can be illustrated in the following sense through just a commonsensical analogy. For example, if I said to somebody, I can predict the rain or something like that, or yeah, if I can predict when the rain will occur, and every single day I predict that it happens today, and then Tuesday I predict it will happen today, and it doesn't happen. Obviously, at one day it's going to happen, and then I go, ha ha, there you go, But that's because I've tried every single day, right?
Right,
Multiple
right.
opportunities will increase the chances that something will just coincide with the other event,
Right.
right? Another example might be just me saying, if I wear a blue shirt, it will rain. And then I wear a blue shirt every single day, or ask people to wear blue shirts in different areas of the country. And if we just do that, it's going to rain at some point in some country. And if lots and lots of people are wearing a blue shirt all around the country, then it's just going to be a massive coincidence that one day somebody's going to put on a blue shirt and it's also going to rain. And then they assume that the blue shirt caused the rain. But that's because you're taking multiple opportunities, multiple chances, where you're trying to put a blue shirt on and just waiting for it to rain. Well, obviously one day is going to rain, and you're going to think the blue shirt caused the rain. Another quick, very very quick example is when you're sitting around in the house and you're thinking of somebody, and then that person calls you. Everybody's had this experience. Have you, Philo? Something like that. You're thinking about somebody and they call you, or something happens, that has a connection with that person, and you think, whoa, am I a psychic? I was just thinking
Right,
about
right.
Matthew.
And each
you
one
know
of us has those kind of experiences where you're thinking of something or
yeah,
somebody and you hear the same phrase. Probably you have a particular song in mind and
yeah,
you probably are going passing through some shop or something and you hear the same song or something like that.
exactly.
That's kind of
Yeah,
an eerie experience that almost each, not almost, almost, yeah, I mean, probably I should be careful here using those words. I think almost each one of us has once or at least a few times in their lives, pretty much.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And everybody's experienced that, and it's also a product of the law of large numbers. Is because we're just counting that situation as special when we're thinking about, let's say, Matthew, and then Matthew gave us a ring, yeah. But we're discounting all those other times when we thought about Matthew. We're also discounting all the other times when we thought about Ryan, when we're discounting all the other times when we thought about Jack or Catherine or Hussein, yeah. And nobody called. None of those people called. None of those were psychic experiences. Yeah, but that one instance where we were just thinking of Ryan on one Tuesday in 32 years of your life, Yeah, you're sitting next to the TV and you're thinking of Ryan, and Ryan rings you. Oh no!
Yes,
But
I
why
mean,
is this happening?
I think. Sorry, I interrupted you, Madhan.
Yeah.
And there is probably a human tendency here at play. Basically, it's a trick of our minds. You can say, call it, or whatever. But
Mm,
we tend to remember more of those incidences where probably you already stated that we tend to remember those of incidences more often than when these kind of coincidences took place rather than when they didn't take place. So
mm.
yeah, I mean that's so very true. But
Yeah.
another example that I wanted to give, and which is probably about in context of religious apologists, is that a religious apologist may argue that even though an individual's experience apropos the miracles uh, could be thrown for skepticism, but then you have so many experiences, so many large number of people who experience these miraculous experiences, and that's an evidence of some kind of miracles really happening or truth for their religion. So this one point I wanted to bring to your attention as well. This kind of the law of the large numbers is used by religious apologists in claiming their um,
Yeah.
evidence for their religion, basically.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, of course, there's lots of people claiming religious experiences between a prayer or a ritual and a miraculous recovery, let's say, of an ailment, and this happens in many different religious systems. And so you have multiple religious systems that have the same sort of experiences. So you have the Christian prayers, you've got the Islamic prayers, you've got the Judaism, Hindu, etc. And you have many very, there are very many subdivisions within those camps, and they have their own little rituals or variants of the rituals, and they all claim that there is a link between the prayer and the induced effect, which is some sort of healing or reversal of a problem or some other phenomena.
Yeah, any
But
form of miracle, even something that comes without even praying, basically. Any miracles, basically. You remember that miracle of the Sophia, was that some miracle like that? I'm forgetting that, but this was the miracle where a huge number of folks in some of the one of the European countries saw, probably Lebanon or something, not Lebanon, maybe some other country, where they
mm,
saw sun dancing, right?
yeah,
Let me just check what that miracle was. Just give me one moment.
okay.
Miracle of Sophia or something like that it is called. Miracle of something like that. Maybe I'll probably try to point this out in our next stream. What miracle that was. But yeah, I mean, bizarre things happen basically when you apply the law of large numbers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because you have multiple people in the world doing multiple activities, you have multiple attempts and trials to do those activities. Many states of affairs overlap with other states of affairs, right? Just by sheer coincidence. That is how you can explain these apparent coincidences
Miracle claims.
where the ritual, yeah, links with a cure. If there are tens of thousands of people every day going to the River Ganges, I don't know whether that's true, by the way, but I do know there's many people, manifolds of people who visit the River Ganges and believe it to have properties that would heal them. Yeah,
Right, right.
right. And if that's happening on a daily basis, some people who were getting better anyway, who went to the River Ganges, when they come back, they would attribute their recovery to the River Ganges, even though there's no link between the River Ganges and
Right.
their, you know,
I think
betterment.
your example covers both of our things. I mean, this
Yes.
is the law of large numbers as well as
And
the
Correlation,
the
causation. Yeah.
correlation, causation kind of.
Exactly. This is why I want to talk about it, because these things are very important tools to identify errors in our thinking when it comes to assessing religious claims, and not just religious claims, any claim, even amongst non-religious communities.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think we are prone to the same kind of fallacies as the religious
yeah,
folks are, pretty much.
yeah, exactly. I mean, if you have thousands of people going to the River Ganges every day, it's inevitable through sheer statistics, just like playing the lottery, right? If something happens 1 in 1 million time, if you play it 1 million times, it'll happen once. Play it 10 million times, it'll happen 10 times. 100 million times, 100 times, whatever. Yeah. Through time, then, if something happens very, very rarely, like it might be a very rare event that very rare event that you will go to the River Ganges around the same time you're about to recover from a disease anyway, naturally, but without any link between the two things. Just because there's so many people are going, yeah, that rare number, let's say X out of 10,000, X out of 10 million, eventually will come to be true over time. So time and opportunities and chances increases the probability of these improbable events to occur. And this is why we end up with lots of stories that we eventually hear, just through sheer chance. That, yeah, so you can definitely find cases where somebody who has very, very, very low odds of surviving goes to the River Ganges and comes back a cured person. But we are discounting all those other people who also had a similar low odds of surviving, but went to the River Ganges and still died. But then we
Or
find
the
it,
healing
yeah,
didn't occur, or healing didn't
or
occur, or
healings,
something
yeah,
like
or anything, yeah, yeah, yeah. Most people don't get healed. Most people die. Most people's pain may even get worse. But then that one exception we count as a recovery, but that's just because of chance, yeah, because most likely they were that statistical anomaly that is very rare, but can happen, not impossible, because multiple trials, multiple people, lots of large number of people increase the probability for those unlikely events to occur, and it did occur. And that's how you
that.
can
Yeah,
explain why.
Mahathir, can I
Yeah,
add one thing to it?
sure.
Are you done with your
Yeah, go for
so
it.
one thing I wanted to add here, and this is not a kind of a I don't want to attack any particular people, any group of people, but I have seen smartest of people falling for these kind of fallacies, especially the law of large numbers and the other fallacy, that correlation causation fallacy
Mm,
that we underlined today.
mm,
I've seen quite a few people. These are quite smart people. They have um, quite a what do you call, very uh, they are big people, very known people in the community and in the diaspora, basically. Uh, Wherever you go within their country, or even they are known globally to a certain extent. But they do fall for these kind of things, and then they start believing that these miracles really happen, uh, and they don't come from a single kind of a religious group. They come from very different religious groups. Some believe in probably uh, Islam, some believe in Christianity, some believe in Hinduism, and different kind of
mm.
religious backgrounds they have, but they all fall for these kind of so I kind of fail to understand how they can't see these simple things. Basically, it's something that bewilders me. And one of the things that I can say, and maybe I'm wrong about it, is these kind of things are not taught in our schools. These kind of critical thinking skills are not taught in our schools. And in my opinion, these kind of thinking skills should be made mandatory in your schools starting from sixth grade or something like that. And maybe should be taught over for 2 to 3 times up until their high school or something like that.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. I'm a very strong advocate for teaching these critical thinking skills, teaching philosophy. But even if you don't teach the entire roster of philosophy in terms of existential thinking and so on, at least teach fallacies and logic and critical thinking, as a mandatory discipline, because critical thinking is far more important than just knowledge, because it enables you to assess the knowledge and understand it, and it enables you to make political decisions better, or general, even commercial decisions, and decisions in your personal life, and obviously stuff like assessing data and statistics. There should be that. I think there are many in the West and so on. I would also suspect in the East some mandatory mathematical courses, and you learn data and statistics, but I don't think it's fleshed out where we learn about how we can misread and misrepresent or misuse statistics, especially when politicians wield it in a self-interested fashion or erroneous fashion, where they manipulate statistics in a way in which it fools the average person. And if we had more statistical literacy, where we knew how numbers can be made to look a particular way for deceptive purposes, we can then identify it better. Like how knowing a newspaper that says 10,000 people died from, just to put it into focus. I'll give you one example, one out of a personal experience that I was arguing with somebody just a couple of weeks ago. It's controversial whether energy drinks, for example, are hazardous to the body or not. I grant that, but somebody had told me that in America, it's known to have like 20 to 60,000 people who have drank Red Bull just before they had a heart attack. Right, Red Bull. I don't know if you know much about it. It's an energy drink.
Right.
Yeah. So apparently in America, again, 20 to 60,000 people has died from drinking, or just before they had a heart attack, they were drinking.
There is a correlation, but there is no causation in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, if every single day there are tens of thousands of people drinking Red Bull, right? There's going to be some instances where they were just every day, if there's tens of thousands of people, and by the end of the week there's hundreds of thousands of people perhaps who have drank Red Bull, and then by the end of the year then there's millions, right? So it's not surprising that a small fraction of them may have been drinking Red Bull and who also had heart problems, and then may have died just before after they drank the Red Bull, right? So that's the law of large numbers in effect. It doesn't, Furthermore, just when you hear that raw number, 20 to 60,000 people died just after drinking Red Bull, or had a heart failure or heart problem, whatever. It's statistical sleight of hand. Well, it's not intentionally trying to be like that, but to an untrained mind with an untrained statistical eye, they may think that sounds like a large number, because as soon as we start looking at numbers like 20 to 60, it fearmongers us. It has many zeros.
It is indeed fear mongering, basically. But one thing I would like to say, I mean, this is kind of, when you have such a large number, first thing you need to do as a skeptical mind is to see whether these numbers are really the true numbers or not. First thing. And then the second line of attack for a skeptic mind has to be, okay, let's see if there is a correlation or causation. And once you see there is a correlation and a causation, you won't say that this is a causation. You probably just saw the correlation. But then if you have to really establish a causation, now that needs some research, basically. And maybe now it's time to take it up as a challenge and start an experimentation. And now you need perhaps a double-blinded experiment or something of that sort, basically.
Absolutely.
If you want to make up your mind about this in a very steadfast manner, you'll have to do experiment, basically, to come to a proper conclusion, at least an informed conclusion, if so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what you would need to do is get 1,000 or 10,000 people to drink Red Bull, get 1,000 and 10,000 people to not drink Red Bull, and see their trajectories of their lives unfold, to see if there's any ailments, diseases, problems, heart problems, compared to the control group. The control group is the one who hasn't been given the Red Bull. Yeah. So people who are given the Red Bull and they consumed it, do they develop, of those 10,000 people, what percentage of them develop heart problems or diseases or ailments compared to the group that were not given Red Bull, but will assume they drank Red Bull, as you said, a double-blind trial where they are given some sort of drink, but it's like a placebo. It's not actually Red Bull. It might even taste like Red Bull. It's a decoy. The reason for that is so that they believe that they're also consuming Red Bull, right? Um,
Exactly.
and that way we can measure the difference between the real Red Bull compared to people who thought they consumed Red Bull, and then follow their maybe like a longitudinal study, follow them for the next year, for the next 2 years, or monitor them even for 10 years. After 10 years, find out um, who's done what. If there's more health problems in the first group who drank Red Bull versus the second group who didn't drink Red Bull, now we know actually that there's a potential grounds for causation. Yeah, why does the first group of people who drank Red Bull and everything else is very much the same? Maybe they're similar age, similar occupation, similar health background, similar eating habits, similar dietary patterns. For example, the first group isn't more unhealthy than the second group. Yet the only factor that's changed, the only variable that's changed between them, is that one drank Red Bull and the other one didn't. Yeah. If now going into the future, if
Martin, your voice has dropped again. I can't
oh,
hear
has it?
anything.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, past 10 seconds are past 5 to 10 seconds. Please repeat.
Okay. So yeah, did you hear me was talk about controlling for all other variables that everything else is the same, like health and body weight and mass, and or did you not hear that? Philo, you might want to unmute your mic.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
I was
Mhm.
on mute. And yes,
Yeah.
please go ahead after that point, right? Control group.
Yeah, yeah. So if everything else is the same, and the only thing that's changed is that um, one group was consuming Red Bull in the experiment for a while, for a year or so. The other group, or more than that, and the other group wasn't consuming Red Bull. And this is very artificial. It's very hard to do this, by the way, but there are limitations to it because it's hard to monitor it. But hypothetically, but for other trials, it has been done, though. It has been done. It's possible, but it can be hard. But one group is made sure to drink Red Bull. The other group is made sure not to. Everything else is the same. It's not like the first group who drinks Red Bull is more unhealthy than the second group. Yeah, it's not that they're older than the second group or younger. It's very, very similar in other characteristics. But that first group is drinking Red Bull. If that first group 10 years later showed that there's a higher statistical percentage of people in that group with diseases, ailments, problems, whatever, let's say 5 to 10% of them have a problem with their heart. But the second group, there's only 2% of them who have a problem with their heart. That suggests that Red Bull was possibly a cause. Yeah,
So then
between
you
the
have a case
2%.
for it, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, a case for it, and if that gets replicated more times, indeed, yeah, what science is doing there is trying to control all other variables and keep it a constant, so it's all the same, and only change one of the variables to see the effect on a particular phenomena. That's what science does. It controls things. Here, what it's doing is um, making two groups and controlling all the other variables, so there's no differences between the groups. Yeah, and the only variable that's changing is Red Bull consumption. And if there's if because of the Red Bull if we change the Red Bull consumption and we see that there's more diseases, we know we can't attribute it to anything else because we've controlled all the other variables. The only thing that was changing primarily was the Red Bull consumption, not other stuff. For other stuff, everything was almost the same. Fast food consumption or exercise levels were the same between the two groups. The thing that was different, drastically different, was Red Bull consumption. Now we've isolated that cause. Yeah, isolated that variable. And if there's a with that variable changing, if there's an effect on the thing that we're measuring, which is health, and there's more health ailments in the group that had an increased consumption of Red Bull. Now we know there's a possible causal connection between the Red Bull and the diseases. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not sure if I was too academic there. So if you want to simplify what I said, maybe if I was
No,
a
no,
little
no,
bit.
that was perfectly fine. That was perfectly
Mm.
fine. I mean, yeah, I agree to all the points that you made over there. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's let's let's move on to the next thing.
Mhm.
What do we have next? Or shall we close the stream here? Maybe we'll take up other points later on. Do you have anything that you want to cover? You want to cover and quickly? Okay,
No, I think.
we have one person joining the stream. If he has any question, please. I've added uh, Said Bhai.
Hello.
Said Bhai, आप म्यूट हैं,
You might want
अनम्यूट
to
कर लें.
unmute. Yeah,
Uh,
unmute your mic, please.
okay, okay. Oh, hello, bhai. How you doing, sir?
सईद भाई कैसे हैं आप?
बस अल्लाह का फजल है। आप कहाँ से है भाई? आप इंडिया से है?
हम दोनों अलग-अलग जगह से हैं। महादिन महादिन ब्रिटेन से है और मैं इंडिया से हूँ, बिल्कुल।
अच्छा अच्छा। सरप्राइज हुआ
कैसे
था
हैं आप?
बस।
कैसे
हाँ,
हैं?
बस ठीक है। अल्लाह का फजल है भाई।
अच्छा, हाँ, मैंने आपको देखा है, आप महादिन सो मैं आपको बता दूँ सईद भाई,
जी
महादिन महादिन जो है वो ब्रिटेन से हैं,
जी जी
है ना?
जी।
लंदन से हैं। प्रॉपर्ली मैं लोकेशन तो नहीं बता सकता, लंदन से शायद।
हाँ, ठीक है
महादिन,
ठीक है।
you're okay if I told your सिटी?
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that.
या
ओके, ओके।
Yeah.
सईद भाई, आप इंग्लिश में कंफर्टेबल हैं?
yes sir. I speak little bit English, yeah, but I communicate better.
ओके, क्योंकि मैं क्यों कह रहा हूँ, क्योंकि महादिन जो है वो हिंदी नहीं समझ पाते हैं, थोड़ी बहुत समझते हैं पर वो नहीं, मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा,
No.
पर उनका उनका जो बैकग्राउंड है वो बांग्लादेश से
Oh, okay,
है ना?
you two guys are ex-Muslims?
महादिन,
Hello.
क्वेश्चन फॉर यू।
Say that again, Said. Sorry.
You two guys are ex-Muslims.
We are. I can't speak on Philo's behalf, but we are skeptics.
वी आर
Oh,
So we,
skeptics,
we,
both of
we
us
we
are
just look at
skeptics.
things critically, right? So we can have many different sort of beliefs and so on.
Right.
But and we don't have anything against religion per se or anything like that, and we may even indulge in certain religious practices, etc. But when we're having these discussions, philosophical discussions, we try to look at things critically and fairly, and so on. So yeah.
okay, okay. So
So our our
okay,
so we
go
when
ahead.
we deal with सईद भाई, जब
Yes, sir.
हम जब क्रिटिसिज्म करते हैं, तनकीद करते हैं किसी पे, किसी भी मज़हब पे, तो हम इवनली करते हैं, मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि हम किसी एक पे करते हैं और दूसरे पे नहीं करते हैं, ऐसा है। आप समझ
Yeah,
रहे हैं
yeah.
मैं क्या कहना चाह रहा
No,
हूँ?
yeah, that's fine, sir. That's just fine.
राइट।
I learned lot of things from atheists. I learned lot of they teach me a lot of things about my own religion. Yeah,
ओके, चलो, ग्रेट, अच्छा है। आप अगर हमसे आप कुछ सीखने मिल रहा है, इफ यू गेट टू लर्न अ फ्यू थिंग्स फ्रॉम अस, वी हैव we have succeeded in doing what we are doing basically, actually.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Yes, we can learn. I mean, this is a diversity of human thoughts make us learn from each other. You know.
yeah, definitely, I mean, it's quite possible that you can teach us something new or something
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we didn't know before.
Yes, yes. Everybody can teach a other person something. Something new. We never know. That's
अच्छा,
why diversity
सईद
is
भाई,
great.
एक सवाल पूछूं आपसे। आपने बताया कि आप किसी एक चीज को सही मानते हैं, राइट? आप जिस भी रिलीजन को मानते हैं। महादिन, डू यू अंडरस्टैंड, कैन यू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट वी
No,
आर टॉकिंग
we
अबाउट?
can talk,
I'm kind of,
brother.
yeah, kind of, yeah.
Brother Flo, you can talk me in English. I can understand English.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So, Said bhai,
Yes, sir.
my question to you is, I'm sure that you believe in one particular religion or so, right?
Yes, I'm
So
Muslim. I'm Muslim. Yeah.
why do you believe in that? What is your strongest reason to believe in it?
I was born into a Muslim family. Uh,
Right.
yeah. So it's a natural to be a Muslim in Muslim family. So
So, so do you think that Do you think that that's the strongest reason for you to take it as a real thing, basically, to
No,
assume that you're
no, that's not. You cannot take like that just because you're born into a Muslim
Yeah.
family, and so that's not. I'm a thinking person. Everybody's think about it. So you see, uh, 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 the believing in God is a natural thing for me. It's not something you have to be taught by your parent or by religion. It's just a natural thinking. You see, when I was a young mm, boy, maybe 5, 6 year old, I used to think about it, how does where does the baby came from? I was thinking because I didn't know. So one day I went to the zoo first time in my life. I saw there was a monkey. So I look at them. They look like just like a human face. They have hand. They're eating with their hands. I was very surprised to see them, and then I conclude they look like a human being. So I conclude that this monkey, when they grow up, they became a human being. That's what my conclusion. So I was always worried about the how life from my childhood. How does life came from? Then I was keep thinking about that. Maybe might have a parent. They have parent. I was keep thinking. Where's the beginning? Where is the beginning? Even in my childhood. So at that time, I conclude that there must be a creator. So in that early age, I come to conclusion there has to be a creator. Yeah.
so, Said Bhai, if I am correct, you try to think of a problem, right? You
Yes.
tried to find solution to a problem that you were stuck with. And let me state, your problem was that you couldn't figure out how human beings came to be. You thought that you came because of your parents came because of their parents, right?
Yeah.
Their
Yeah.
parents because of their parents, so on and on and on. But you couldn't figure out this end to this problem, right?
Uh-huh.
So since you couldn't figure out an end to this problem, you assumed God, right?
Yes, sir.
But
Yeah.
do you think that's a good reason to believe in a God? I mean, do you see the problem in your reasoning?
You see, what else? I mean, you believe a human being always existed on Earth forever?
No, that's not a question. Question is, uh, uh, we were um, we were talking about fallacies. आपने हमारी स्ट्रीम सुनी क्या आज की? नहीं सुनी, राइट? हमने दो लास्ट की स्ट्रीम्स की हैं. We have done last two streams on logical fallacies, and I think, and I am pretty sure, Said bhai, you are a very thinking person and you are a very logical person as well. I'm pretty sure you are, right?
Uh,
And probably
yeah.
you haven't thought through all these things very carefully. You haven't got, because maybe because of so many different reasons. Maybe you didn't get enough time due to all these responsibilities of family and all those things, right? But
Yes.
the question I'm saying is, all these fallacies that we have discussed, please, if you get time, listen to these two streams, today's streams and the stream prior to it, and we illustrate the logical reasonings where we humans are wrong about our very basic logical reasonings as well. So one of these things, one of those logical fallacies is this one that I am trying to point at, and it is that since you couldn't find a solution to a problem, you assumed God, that God
Mhm.
must have done it, basically. Right. Mahadin,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think Philo has given a good objection to you there, Saeed. Um, you're thinking about a very important problem, like where did human beings come from, right?
Yeah.
But we know, for example, when we try to figure something out and we can't answer it, we can't replace that answer with any other answer. It doesn't necessarily just have to be a god one, a god related one. Like you can believe in God for good reasons, but I would say that is not a good reason. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say there's a car, yeah.
Mhm.
Somebody drove the car to your house.
Uh-huh.
So you go outside of your house and you see the car parked there, and you can't explain who drove the car to your house, right?
Yes, yes.
If you then go and conclude that um, Elvis Presley, or I don't know, any name, Charles, Robert drove the car to your house,
Mhm.
you know, that doesn't make a lot of sense because you were saying you don't know how the car got there,
Mhm.
right? The real answer is that if you don't know a solution to a problem, which is who drove the car to the house, that's a mystery. And then you have to figure out the tools to go and find out how to answer that mystery. You might conduct an investigation. You might try and find out who the car registration plate is registered to. You might want to look at the cameras on the street. That's a good way of investigating. But if you don't know the solution to the problem, which is the mystery of who drove the car to your house, what you can't do is come up with any other explanation. I can't think of how the car got there, therefore maybe magic did it. Well,
Mhm.
you can't invoke magic in that situation without evidence. What you will, so my point, our point is that in this situation where there's a mystery, you can't answer the mystery without additional evidence. Yeah. And if you acknowledge that this is a complex, confusing problem that has no answer, maybe the answer is that it's a complex, confusing question that cannot be answered. Maybe we need more investigations before we can answer it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, you're right about that. But right now, we don't have any answer how life begin, how life started.
Yeah.
So we cannot imagine life just came by about without any without any made by anybody. It just
Hmm.
cannot be appear on the earth. There has to be some real reasoning behind, and
Sure. So what about this, Saeed? Right.
what.
For example, historically speaking, we knew, for example, we didn't know what caused clouds to form. Let's say, oh, sorry, lightning. Let's say lightning. We thought, for example, we don't know how to explain lightning, right? The lightning that happens from the cloud and the thunder and lightning and so on. We can't explain that.
uh,
So people thought it was this Greek figure called Thor. I think it's a Greek figure. Yeah. Greek figure called Thor. Yeah. I think you must have heard of Thor. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Ancient Greece.
Mhm.
Thor was physically like an anthropomorphic hand was throwing bolts of lightning to the ground on Earth,
Mhm.
right? That was the explanation that was given because they could not. We didn't know at that time, back in the day, a very long time ago, hundreds, thousands of years ago, how lightning occurred. But later on, when we developed scientific tools and investigative tools and research, we eventually learned that the reason lightning occurs is because of static electricity produced from the clouds, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and yeah, similarly, we did not know what causes epilepsy
Mhm. Yeah.
or epileptic seizures. Eventually, we learned that it's to do with your nervous system, to do with electronic charges in the brain, etc., and so on. And there are multiple other scientific findings that we've discovered like that. So, what this shows is that through history, every time a person didn't know how to explain something and then replaced that explanation with a supernatural cause like a god or a deity or a spirit, they were wrong. Am I right?
Mhm. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So does that not show, for example, history of humanity has shown that we are very, very, very unlikely to get it right like that. We should wait for science to explain the next mystery, because
Uh-huh.
most mysteries in the past, almost all mysteries in the past that has been solved due to science and not because we eventually discovered that it was a supernatural cause like a deity or a god.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Good. But you think one day we can explain about the life originated, how life started? The we are very sophisticated creature. It's not like like mm, what we say. There are life, but it's not that sophistication. We are not like that. We are thinking, walking, uh, talking, communicate.
Mm.
This is, we are very sophisticated creature.
Yeah.
So we are not like a tree, tree or the fungus. We are not like a fungus, uh, something like that. But we are very intelligent, very sophisticated creature. We can travel to the other planets. We have abilities, all these things. So how this all this come about without a intelligent by itself, whatever created us? So how that can happen? Can we figure out in future? You think there will be a answer to the life, how originated, who created the life, or Earth gave birth to living creatures by itself?
साइद भाई,
Yes, sir.
आपने मिलर उरे एक्सपेरिमेंट का सुना है? हैव यू हर्ड ऑफ मिलर उरे एक्सपेरिमेंट?
No, 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 sir, no, no.
So in 1959 or so, something like that, or 1960s, these two scientists, Miller and Urey, performed an experiment to build amino acids. आपको मालूम है amino acids क्या होते हैं? Do you know what are amino acids?
Very little.
Right,
No.
right. So amino acids are building blocks of humans, basically human cells, right?
Uh-huh.
ये हमारी बॉडी में हर जगह अमीनो एसिड्स होते हैं। आप जो कभी कभार एनर्जी ड्रिंक्स भी लेने जाओगे ना, इफ यू नो दीज बॉडी बिल्डर्स, सो अमीनो एसिड्स आर बिल्डिंग ब्लॉक्स ऑफ प्रोटीन्स बेसिकally, ठीक है ना? एंड
Okay.
देर आर आई थिंक 19 और सो
Oh,
एसेंशियल अमीनो एसिड्स, है ना?
okay.
तो दीज गाइस,
Where those acid came from? I mean, where this from?
सो दे सो दीज
Which
अमीनो एसिड्स,
plant?
आपको मालूम है ना,
Which,
आपको आपको ये मालूम है कि हमारी जो बॉडी में जो भी कंपोनेंट्स हैं वो, these components are present outside, basically on the earth or
yeah, yeah, yeah,
somewhere
yeah, yeah.
in the cosmos, basically, right?
I
You
agree with that.
require hydrogen, you require oxygen, you require nitrogen, you require
Mm.
carbon, right?
The
Phosphorus and all
all
these
the
other
mineral
elements. So what
also.
they did was, sorry, Said bhai, boliye
Yeah,
please.
also the mineral. We also are made of minerals.
Yeah,
The
we see our bodies are mostly made of water, right?
yeah,
Mostly water,
also have a
कार्बन।
minerals.
हुँ?
You know,
हाँ, बिल्कुल
I
आपकी
believe
बात सही
we
है।
also made of minerals like iron, and there's other many minerals on
Yeah,
earth.
yeah, we
We
have
could
but
we
we contain all these minerals as well,
Yeah, yeah,
magnesium and all these, right?
yeah.
And
Calcium is a very important mineral.
right, right, all these components, yeah, they are essential, but they are all found in greater cosmos as well, right?
Yeah, you can find them.
So,
Yeah,
so saying that somebody made it is kind of like, okay, if somebody made it, why did they make it with the same components that are in abundance out there in the cosmos, right? What is the most abundant component in the cosmos? Hydrogen, right?
yes,
What
yes.
is the most abundant component in human body?
Yes.
Hydrogen, right?
Water. Yeah.
H2O, H2O, H2O is
Yes.
water, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So you see that the correlation between these two things, right? अगर किसी किसी
Yeah. Yeah.
खाली के, if some खाली के कायनात had to made humans, or some god has to made humans, why would he be a slave to all these components? Basically, he could have made us with anything he wanted, right?
Yeah.
Gold, he could have made us of gold, basically, or he could have made us of some component that didn't even exist in the whole universe, but only in humans, right?
Yeah.
Because he's a creator, he could create out of
Yes.
anything, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So only thing you can explain why humans exist the way they do is through a process that is kind of random, or
You you
Le-
with
know.
a
Yeah.
I think we should let Saeed speak about that in response
right
You
before
see,
side.
yeah.
Go ahead,
You see,
go
God
ahead.
does not only create a biological creature, He also created other creation, like we believe in angels and jinn, and they are also a different kind of created, and God used some different material to create them. They are not. jinn are invisible creature, but they have a life, but they do not eat food. Angel have another creature. God used differently. They created. So it's not just a human being, but a biological creature. But he also created many other type of creature.
Right, but this is your belief, Said bhai. This is your
Yes, yes,
belief, right?
yes.
I mean, if you were to prove to somebody, or if you were to give evidence to somebody as to why you believe in jinns or angels or right all those things,
Uh-huh.
how would you tell somebody that they really do exist? See, if I were to tell you that I have a dragon in my pocket, right?
Mhm.
Okay, you
Yes, yes.
understand the example I'm giving you.
Mhm.
If I were to claim that I have a dragon in my pocket, you would ask, okay, show me the dragon. I would
Yes,
say,
yes,
no, that dragon is invisible. Now you
yes,
would
yes.
say, okay, then I would need a different line of evidence. Show me what it can do. I
Okay.
would say it throws fire. Then you would say, okay, that's invisible, but show me the fire. Then I would say, no, but you can't see the fire. It's on the heat that it generates. Then you would say, okay, let me bring a thermometer. I would check the heat. And then I would say, no, it won't show the heat because for some other reasons, right? So I keep putting this, evidence beyond anybody's reach. And so I'm not giving any evidence for my claim. You see what I'm doing? Same is your claim, basically, that you're claiming, or I don't know, it's not your claim, but your book's claim or your religion's claim, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So some form of tangible evidence that both of us can agree on needs to be given, right?
Mhm. So
Do you agree to that? Do you
yeah,
agree
yeah.
to that point?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Uh, how why you can come to conclusion that there is no creator. Why that conclusion is a rational conclusion? There is no creator.
No, that's not our conclusion that there is no creator. I mean, see, there are two different questions. Is there a creator? And my answer would be I don't know. And if you put a gun against my head and say, what do you see? Look at this world. What do you see? Is there a creator or not? And I would say, looking at this world, I don't think that there is a creator. You see, because this world seems to be too haphazard. Maybe there is a creator, and that creator is an evil one, basically, right?
No,
Because
it
But,
doesn't
but
matter. He is a evil one. He is a good one. It doesn't
yeah, yeah.
matter.
But what I
He,
would say, Saeed, is that nobody over here, me or Philo, is concluding anything about a God not existing.
yeah.
We're just asking you, for example, what the specific questions regarding why you think life has to be only created by a god, or why do you think, for example, your scripture was written by a god, or what is the evidence for jinns or angels, etc.
Mhm,
Right? We're not saying jinns don't exist. We're not saying
mhm,
gods don't exist. We're just saying why do they exist? I'm not saying they don't exist, because after this, for example, after this conversation with you, I can genuinely go and pray.
uh-huh.
But we're having, we're having we can believe something on faith, for example. But right, lots of people
Mhm.
believe things on faith, on emotional belief. But
Yes,
question is,
yes.
are these facts? So then we need reasons, intellectual reasons, data, information, and so on. So my question is, just to make it simple, for example, um, is there an even? I'm going to ask you this question, Saeed. Is there an
Mhm.
odd or even number of stars? What do you think?
Even number of stars.
You think there's an even number of stars? How did you do that? How do you know that?
I don't understand your question.
Oh, so,
so the questions Mahaden is asking Said
Uh,
is, if you were asked this question, are there odd number of stars in the universe or even number
yeah.
of stars in the universe? That's the question.
What do you think?
We don't know. It's odd number or even number. We don't know because we don't even know how many are star over
Yeah,
there.
good, good. So does that mean you think there's an even number of stars?
No, we cannot tell anything about
You
it.
cannot. So does that mean you think there's an odd number of stars?
No, we cannot say anything.
Okay, that's exactly the position that illustrates our position here. We're not saying that there is a God. We're not saying there is no God. Yeah,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
we're saying what evidence do you have to think there is a God? Okay. Similarly, if I said to you, look, you said to me right now, you don't know whether it's even number of stars or there's an odd number of stars.
Mhm.
But if I said to you, I know there's an even number of stars, what would you say? You'd say, how do you know?
Yes,
Right?
yes,
And
yes.
then if I said to you, well, how do you know there's an odd number of stars? You,
Mhm.
Saeed, would say, I don't think any of them is true. I don't know which one it is. I don't know. I'm neutral. It could be odd, it could be even. I don't know. So for this conversation, that's our position, right? We're
Yes,
we're starting from on a fact-driven place. Like I said, after this conversation, I could go and pray namaz.
yes,
Yeah, but we're trying to be educational here, right?
yes, yes,
What we're trying to do is trying to build thought so we can prove God or disprove God, whichever the result, whichever the truth, doesn't matter.
yes,
We
yes,
want to be
yes.
honest and find out. But can you see, just like the odd and even example, yeah, there's two possibilities: odd or or equal. Sorry, yeah, sorry, odd or even. Similarly, there's two possibilities: God exists or God does not exist. You just like you are neutral, you don't know. We have to be neutral for this question as well. We don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you say there is a God, we have to. Then we can say, why do you think there is one? But that doesn't mean I'm saying there is no God. You get it?
Yes. If I say there is no God, then my question will be same. How the life is came about. There has to be a beginning, or life always existed. Uh, you know, answer could be a life always existed. So the question will be then. You know. Uh, how we do not know how life are starting point, because we know we born from our parents, and they have their parents, so we begin to think about it. There must have been a starting point. There must be a starting point. So we trying to figure out how this starting point start, you know so we see just a earth, empty earth, and there is a starting point of life. You
Said
understand?
bhai, Said bhai, आप दोनों, you are going on two extremes. You saying uh, God exists. If God doesn't exist, how can you have anything, right? You can, I mean, there are almost infinite possibilities, right? You can still have one God existing, and you can still have an eternal universe, right? You see that argument? You see
Mhm,
the point I'm trying to make?
mhm,
You can still have a God, right? But that may not be a creator God, right? That could be a maintainer God, maybe. Or there could be one creator God who created everything, but he's not a maintainer God, but he's not maintaining. He's like, what do you call, William Paley's God, basically. Have you
mhm.
heard of the philosopher William Paley?
No, 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 no. I'm not.
So, William Paley's God is the blind watchmaker God, basically, or watchmaker's God. Is Madin, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So that God is someone who created this clock, but now he created the clock, he threw it away, and he's no more present, right? Now that clock is just ticking over, right? That's how the universe
Yes.
is. That's the creator God, basically, right? So that creator God created the universe, everything within the universe. Now that clock is ticking over by itself.
Yeah.
He's not
Yeah.
intervening. He's not listening to your prayers. He's
Saeed,
not doing
Saeed.
anything,
Yeah, let me
basically.
just ask him, Saeed, what if even if there is a starting point, what makes you think that God, that creature that started everything, is still present or alive.
What's that?
Even if you think there is a start, there has to be a starting point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Right? Why do you think there has to be a starting point?
Uh,
Yes.
we see, you know, we see there is a land, and then sudden trees grow from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to think about it. How this tree, where this tree coming from?
Yes.
There is, so that's why I'm looking at this earth, empty earth, and then life come about. So where this life come from? you know that's a human thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we need
But
a satisfy answer. If we don't get, then we have only answer is there is a creator who created this life.
but I gave you an example of where we tried to answer many past questions like that. Every single question that you might find in a science book was once unknown, right? Did
Mhm.
we know the answer before we found out?
Which answer?
Every
Any
any
question.
science question in the history of
Mahathir
humanity.
gave you
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Mahathir
Yeah.
gave you an example of lightning, right? I mean, this
yeah,
is a very best example.
yes,
We didn't know about lightning, Said bhai, right?
Yes, yes,
How lightnings are happening, right? People thought, and especially the
yes,
Greeks had a god for it as well, and
yes,
the
yes,
god's name was Thor, right? You might have
Ye-
heard of it, right?
yes, yes, yes,
Thor, the god
yes,
of thunderbolt, basically, right?
yes, yes, yes.
And they thought that Thor was throwing the thunderbolt from the skies or clouds, whatever, right? I'm not
Yeah,
clear about the whole thing,
we
but
were
then slowly we
primitive
realized
people.
why lightning happens, right?
Yes.
So that's what Mahadin's point is.
Yeah, we developed lot of primitive thinking, and it wasn't bad thing. We are starting to thinking using our brain to think about it, and we get lot of thing wrong. So I don't think is something wrong about that. you know
No, the point we are trying to make, Said Bhai, is that, see, you don't have an answer right now for where a tree came from, right?
yeah,
We know that trees come from earth. From earth, they have seeds grow from earth, take up nutrition from earth. Now you can go back and back and back and back and to a single cellular organism, and then you can probably find out some explanation for it. There are theories about it. If you haven't read, maybe read about abiogenesis. ठीक है,
yes,
सईद
yes,
भाई?
yes,
अ,
yes,
आपको मौका कभी मिलेगा
yes,
तो
yes,
आप
okay.
abiogenesis के बारे में पढ़ें. Try
जी,
to
जी.
read about abiogenesis and then read about evolution, right? So these two combined give pretty good explanation of how uh, how what we see in our lives uh, happen, basically, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, this is good. We need to discuss about this. We should not be following anything blindly just because what parent say or religion say. I don't follow like that. Everything in religion I question them. If it makes sense, I acceptable. So that's how I go. That's yeah.
Oh, no, you have a very good approach. I mean, I really appreciate your approach, Said Bhai.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yes,
I'm pretty sure. See, I think we are all on the same page. You, myself, and Mahadin, we are all on the same page. We are in search for truth. Basically, it is quite possible that all of us will be no more, and we won't be any closer to truth, right?
yes, yes,
Exactly how this universe came about, where uh, there are a huge number of big questions, right? What is the purpose of our life, and all those things? Or is there a greater purpose of life? Maybe we can break it up in small chunks and say, okay, my purpose of in life is to make this planet better, right? Maybe
yes,
end some of these bad evils in the societies and stuff like that. And that's a very good purpose, right, to have, or to educate children, maybe bring more and more children out of poverty and all those things, right? So that's a very noble cause, that's a very good purpose in life. But if you're asking, do I have any purpose outside this, a cosmic purpose in life? Maybe that's a very tough question to answer, right? Maybe there is none, right?
I think we can know what is our purpose because our brain is a sophisticated brain. So we can say to use our brain is our purpose in life. We have a hands, eye, and legs. So this all is not. They have their own purpose. So we can. Our life, our purpose is to use those what we have. So to gain knowledge and grow. That should
See,
be
our
our.
brains side by brains purpose and fundamental purpose of our brains. Humans have bigger brains than any other primates, right? You know this, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So the fundamental reasons why we have bigger brains is uh, we became smarter, we started living in societies, and we started developing tools. And
Yes.
bigger brains help us survive better. That's why we are thriving in numbers. You see, we are uh, we are thriving like anything, right? Pretty much. And the bigger brains help us survive better, basically, right?
Yes, yes. You know,
So
why is this nature accidentally the only creature on earth is a human being who have capability to communicate. There is no other creature who can communicate like we do. There is no creature who can develop technology. Uh,
no,
uh,
a lot of animals can communicate, right?
no, 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 no,
And they can communicate in different ways, right? you
no.
you have seen, orcas attacking bigger sperm whales and all those their kids, have you seen those things?
Yeah, those are just the basic. This
These orcas communicate. Are Said, Mahaden, you have dropped out. Mahaden has dropped out.
okay.
So Said bhai, these orcas communicate with each other, and then they
No, no. Why is the co-accident happen? It's just
Mahaden, you were dropped out. Sorry,
Yeah.
Said bhai. Yeah.
so.
So
What?
these orcas communicate and they strategize even, right?
Look,
They
yeah,
make strategy to capture their food basically, and that's their strategies and their tactics are for their survival basically. So every
have you no?
each creature has some specialty, right? For example, a cheetah, right? You know what is a cheetah, right? The
Yes,
fastest land animal, right?
yes, yes.
Can you run like a cheetah? No,
No,
right?
no. I cannot run like
You're
cheetah.
right. None of the humans, even the fastest human on the planet, what's
Yes.
his name? Usain Bolt, right?
Because we
Even he
don't need
can't
to
run as
run.
fast as cheetah,
We
right?
we do not need
So
to
the
run like a
cheetahs have
cheetah.
evolved. Cheetahs have evolved
Can
to
you hear
run,
me,
basically.
brother? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, sure, I can.
Yeah, the cheetah does not. We do not need to run like a cheetah. We don't need to. We don't need to fly like a bird because we can do a lot of things without those things. Having those things, you see, we when I say we communicate, we discuss like we are discussing over here. No animal can discuss like that. If we are at the product of accident, there should be have been money like us, looking
Right.
different. Dif-
That's the point I'm trying to make, Said bhai, is that you are cherry picking your qualities over some other animals'
Mm.
qualities and saying that these qualities are definitely better than those qualities. And I'm saying that's a fallacy. You see what I'm saying? Madin, if you want to jump in, please do.
Yeah, I'm just to explain what Philo is saying is because you're saying bigger brains and extremely good thinking is a special attribute that we have, not that no other animal possesses. Is that right?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So we are special because we have brains that are very, very smart, and the rest of the animals don't have this.
So
Um,
look, the many animals, they have like a cheetah. They have
yeah.
another animal like like take deer or something like that. Similarity, both can run. Same speed, equal speed, or little less. But they have both have. We don't have. We don't need to be run like a cheetah. So I'm saying is why all animal, you see, they have similarity in them. All of them, they have some similarity in
Not
them.
necessarily. Not
So
necessarily. Not necessarily because I've not done an complete list of all the animals, but they don't have similarities. There are many animals out there with unique abilities that no other animal has, or maybe only one or two animals may have.
but
For example,
they still are.
somebody.
They are all are animal. They do not communicate. They do not think. They cannot. They cannot.
Oh, they do. They do. What do you mean they don't communicate?
Do
What do
they
you mean by they
do they
communicate?
invent? Do they invent anything?
Yeah, there are animals who invent. For example, let me give you an example. Birds can build nests. Bees can build beehives. Yeah, they can. There are many animals that burrow holes in the ground, so they have some degree of intelligence.
Okay.
So what do you mean is that they don't have the same type of ability as us? Is that
Uh,
right?
there is no comparison to us what we can do as a human being. There is no
Yeah.
comparing to us. You agree with that or not?
सईद भाई आपकी बात सही है यू आर राइट इन थिंकिंग
Yeah.
दैट आवर इंटेलिजेंस लेवल इज मच हायर देन others is but the
Eh,
fundamental thing that I want to point out is that this uh, this rise in intelligence has come about by way of evolution and that was due to our issues of survival.
Yeah. One minute.
Our bigger
Before.
brains, our
Yeah.
bigger brains
Yeah.
helped us survive better. And
Philo,
if it
one minute,
didn't
Philo.
need, yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
One thing that I want to say to Saeed is that I, th- I think you're prioritizing brain size to be too much of a skill subjectively. You prefer. I know understand. I understand you give it special value, but for example, brain size. Why do you think this is a good thing? Because it invented technologies, enabled us to create civilizations and create industries, come out with scientific solutions, and these sounds to be great, right? But we are giving this a subjective special value, right? Technically speaking, there are other species in the universe, in planet Earth, that has far exceeded us in many ways in terms of
which one?
survival.
Which no, I'm
Me-
not talking about survival. I'm talking about intelligent being, a creative creature who can observe, who can research.
Yeah, but why? Why do you put that as the end goal? What about survival? For example, survive in terms of survival.
We don't.
Many. No, 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 1 minute, 1 minute. In terms of survival, microorganisms has far exceeded us, and it's probably going to be one that kills us and has lived longer, has lived for more time since the beginning of the Earth, creation of the Earth, and so on. Microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, etc. That dominates the Earth. We think we dominate the Earth, but those things dominate the Earth, and they don't have a brain.
No, I'm only saying if we are a product of accident,
Mm.
uh, so why there is no like us, human being? Why there is
Okay.
no creature? Every creature has similarity. They have more similarity each other. The only thing is human does
Mm.
not have similarity. Like take like a monkeys and the chimpanzees.
Mm.
We do look like
I
in
think there are
similarity.
different. Yeah. So first of all, one thing that I say there are big differences between animals as well. Other animals, other non-human animals, there are big differences in ability. Some animals have less intelligence, some have more, etc. Now you're trying to say that all of these other animals they're more similar to each other than us, and we're just this big different in terms of intelligence, right?
Okay.
In
Look,
that department, perhaps intelligence, but why are you focusing on intelligence and not other things? Like when it comes to something like reproduction, yeah, and how fast something reproduces, bacteria and viruses exceed all other species. Bacteria and viruses are on the right, and everything else is on the left. Can you see what I'm saying?
no, that's
Yeah.
all good. That's all good. But I'm saying the dominant creature on earth is a human being.
Though I would
And
say the most dominant creatures on Earth are probably bacteria and viruses. There are many more of them.
no,
Yeah.
no, I think you do not understand. Bacteria will never go to a moon or a planet, other planet.
They've been. We found
Mars.
bacteria on other planets.
Bacteria does not research, make
No, no. Okay,
do
I
research,
understand what.
Said bhai,
observation. They only
Said
try.
bhai,
They only try to survive. That's all. Their
Yes,
life.
yes,
Said bhai,
which is what we do as well.
Said
So
bhai.
all of
So
our traits of inventing things, creating things, is what is the reason for it? So that we can survive.
Ek,
Bacteria does it. Yeah, bacteria does it without doing those things. So we invent things so that we can live longer and then have children and not die in childbirth, etc. Bacteria doesn't do those things and has the same goal, which is survive. And bacteria has outlived us because existed before us and probably will exist after us. And furthermore, bacteria also we found bacteria and viruses and so on in space as well. Can you see what I'm saying? My point is, if the goal is survival, and you're saying our intelligence enables us to survive, yes, bacteria has done this without intelligence, and it has conquered the Earth, and it's existed before the Earth, and existed around space and everywhere elsewhere.
you consider yourself to be bacteria or less
No,
than
no, no, no.
bacteria?
Obviously not.
No, no, no.
Obviously not.
You are intelligent less than bacteria.
No,
That's
no,
what
no.
you
My
think
point
about
is,
yourself.
if you regard yourself, I regard myself as special, of course. But my point, that's not the
Why?
point that you were making. It's not the point that you were making. What you were saying is that we are special because of our intelligence has enabled us to survive, right?
Mhm.
But I'm saying other creatures have invented other methods, not invented, they didn't invent it, but through evolution, they developed different methods to enable them to survive. So the element of survival is not special. Yeah, inventing biological mechanisms, bacteria and viruses have evolved biological mechanisms that enables them to survive and reproduce better than us. One of the evolutionary traits that enabled us to survive was having bigger brains. Bigger brains leads to better intelligence, and better intelligence increases our chances of surviving. True, but bacteria also enhance that goal of survival without intelligence. You see what I'm saying? Each creature, it develops their own methods to survive, and there are creatures better than us who invented different methods to survive. One of our methods is intelligence, but it's not intelligence is our method that we think is unique, but other creatures have their own unique methods.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Look,
what I want to point out to Said Bhai is our intelligence is a product of us wanting to survive. Basically, our survival pushed us ahead for a better intelligence. You see the difference?
so
Other creatures didn't need that kind of intelligence to survive, to thrive.
they don't need intelligence to survive. Why we need to brain to survive?
No,
I
they
mean,
didn't
why?
need as much intelligence
I
basically to
mean,
survive.
I mean,
Basically,
they are surviving on Earth billions of years longer than us. So why we need a
they
brain,
have
a sophistication to survive?
Mahaden just told you that they have developed different skills and different
Mm.
methods for survival.
It's
Basically,
okay, Saeed. Let me give you an example.
Mhm.
Right? Um, in different cultures, different languages were invented to solve similar problems. Right?
Mhm.
Right? For example, in the West, we speak a particular language. In the East, there are different languages. In the history of humanity, different languages were invented, created, etc. Similarly, in different cultures, there are different tools to undergo to cultivate the same thing. Right? So in the East, or historically in the East, there may have been certain tools to dig crops. And in a different continent, in a different country, there would have been different tools. So the fact that different animals invent different tools to um, address similar problems is similar to that. So why did we develop intelligence? It's just that it's the specific sort of events in our history that shaped it. Just like a country has its own unique set of events, right? That leads to different languages, different inventions, different tools, different clothes, different skill sets, different specialities. The Chinese were very good at, for example, tea cultivation because of tea leaves, right? And a different culture in a different area of the world were very good at cultivating potatoes, but both for the same goal of survival. Evolution is similar. We were in different places with different environments, and we, because of the demands of the environment, we developed in different ways. Some of us developed more intelligence, other developed other tools to address the very special and unique problems in that environment, right? um, right, just like, so you got to imagine evolution to be like cultures and countries and history of how different human beings came to be. Yeah, you speak Hindi or Urdu or whatever for a particular reason. That's because very, very specific events in your history happened that enabled you to learn those skills. In a different culture, it was something else. And that's how evolution kind of works. It's not perfect, but it's kind of like that.
Brother, let me tell you something. In the beginning, there is earth and dust on it. Okay,
Hmm.
and how a life begin from there. How whatever life there was in, tiny life, whatever there is, how that begin. Can you imagine? Can you explain those life begin?
Side by, I already told you the answer to that problem. I told you, I asked you to read about abiogenesis.
No,
Did you get the
you,
point I was trying to
no,
make?
you if you read
Saeed,
it,
Abiogenesis.
Saeed. Um, before we do anything,
We are
can we
gonna
answer?
close the
Can you,
the stream.
yes,
Uh,
sir.
1 minute
so
before we do anything, anybody. A commentator here has made a comment saying Salman Ahmed. Can you? Madin made a claim about a source for made a claim about bacteria. I think. Could you provide a source for bacteria being found outside of the Earth? Right now, from the top of my head, no. I can get it from Google in a minute. I might be wrong about that. I'm not 100% sure because I was citing something from memory. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure microorganisms have been found. I can't remember if it was viruses or bacteria or both. Have
right,
been found on asteroids. Yeah.
I've read some
Yeah.
news like that.
Yes. Exactly.
But I might be wrong as well. So
Mm.
one of the recent news that I read was about certain certain moon of Uranus or Neptune or something like that, and they said there was they found something in there, whether it was water or it was one of bacteria or something like that, and it was based on the spectroscopy of certain wavelength of the light that they found. But we could be horribly wrong here, so don't quote us on that thing. But let's, for the timing until we bring concrete evidence to that, assume that we were wrong about that, and there's no such thing as Mahadin mentioned, that there is bacteria being found outside of Earth. But if there is enough evidence, we'll correct ourselves and present the evidence in the next stream whenever that happens. Said bhai,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
इट
Tell
वाज
me.
गुड, नाइस टॉकिंग टू यू.
Yes,
आपके
sir.
पास सवाल बहुत हैं, आपके सवाल भी हैं, अच्छे सवाल हैं. यू हैव गुड क्वेश्चंस. एंड सलमान भाई, थैंक्स फॉर योर क्वेश्चन एज वेल. So we'll stop the stream here, but you are more than welcome to come in the next stream whenever you can. Salman bhai, you as well, come join the stream, and if you have any questions, you can always tell where we went wrong with our streams or where our facts were not right. So we'll more welcome you both more than uh, just to correct ourselves, basically. Thank you, Mahadin. I think it's time to stop the stream. We decided that we'll only go for an hour or so. It's about like 2 hour 20 minutes
Yeah.
or something like that. So, but it was
Yeah.
nice conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Philo, and thank you, Said, for coming on. You're most welcome to come again. You asked very good questions, and I hope to continue the debate. Maybe to come again in our next session. Keep a
Yes, sir.
lookout. So please
Yeah,
subscribe.
Yes, sir.
Subscribe
Mahadin.
so that you know you're most welcome to come along, and we can continue the conversation in this respectful fashion that we have
Yes,
talked
sir. Yes,
already.
sir.
Yeah.
I
Said
already
Bhai, if
subscribed.
you want
Yes,
to
sir.
say something before we close the
Can you
stream,
hear me?
please go ahead.
Can you
Yes,
hear
we
me?
can.
Okay.
Yes, we can, Said.
Yeah. I appreciate you give me opportunity. I do not oppose atheism because we need variety of mind, so we can learn from each other. Either that's a good thing. We don't have to put down other people just because they disagree with us. So it is a good thing. We have atheists on our, on earth. So I like that. We need to discuss, question each other, so grow from there.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's great.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Said Bhai, thank you very much. See you in the next stream. Mahadin, same here. Uh, See you in the next stream. Bye bye. Bye for now.
Yes. And hopefully on the next stream, Salman will talk about the bacteria link. Yeah. But other than that, see you later, everybody.
All right. See you, Mahadin. See you,
See you.
everybody. Thank you
Bye.
very much.